Okay, Erev Tov, good evening, everyone. We continue Gemara Masechet Berachot. We're in the middle of a tangent. We started off our perek speaking about Misha Meitom Mutalefanav, someone who lost a relative, and what that means, what the implications are for the mitzvah of Shema Yisrael, and that we said an onen does not have to say Shema Yisrael. But then we got into the topic of death. We started to speak about death. And as you have it, the Gemara is not just a halachic book. It also is a hashkafic book. There's also philosophical discussions. And we started talking about what it means when someone dies and their awareness of what goes on in this world. It's important topics that the Talmud has. Shalom Aleichem, how are you? This discussion of the Gemara starts speaking about it. Then once we started speaking about when someone passes away, we got into the topic of loeg larash. Loeg larash is not mocking someone who died, not to do something to offend them, which from a mitzvot perspective, it means not doing mitzvot in front of the corpse or in front of the body or even where the burial is. And then we also last week touched on this very important topic of not speaking after a Talmid Chacham after he dies. Right? We said someone who speaks negatively about a Talmid Chacham after he dies, he goes straight to Gehinnom. This was one of the things that we learned. So we're going to continue to speak about the respect of a Talmid Chacham, because the next Gemara after that said, if you see a Talmid Chacham doing something wrong one night, by the morning you should assume he already did teshuvah. Right? There's a certain amount of respect a person has for a Talmid Chacham, that even if he did something wrong, you assume that he's going to do teshuvah. We're now going to continue on that line, and we're going to learn about the concept of nidui. Nidui is when we excommunicate someone from the community because of something that they're doing. They get cut off and they don't enter the community, and there's certain things that certain privileges that are taken away from them, and certain things that we do for them, and we're going to start discussing a little bit of that. After that topic, we'll return back to our Mishnah, which our Mishnah was again talking about reciting Kriyat Shema at a funeral and things like that. So hopefully, let's finish this off. It's a long tangent, and there's more tangents to this tangent, but let's begin. Okay, share screen. We are picking up on Gemara Masechet Berachot Daf Yutet Amud Aleph 19A. If you're looking in the art scroll, it's V'amar Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi on 19A2. It's the first break. The first space break on 19A2. Here we go. There are 24 instances bedin menadin al kevod harav, that the courts will ostracize someone, will excommunicate someone, will put them in nidui. Nidui means to excommunicate them, which has certain implications. You can't get yourself involved with them. You don't give them any kavod. Even when they're buried, they're going to treat them with disrespect. They don't have the same funeral procession for this person, because even if someone dies when he is excommunicated, you make it clear through his funeral that there's some difference between this person and others, which means it's a very serious thing, someone who's put in nidui. So what we're saying here is that there are 24 actions that will get nidui, specifically with kevod harav. What's kevod harav? Honor of a rabbi. So we mentioned that if one speaks about a Talmid Chacham after his death, speak negatively about him, he goes to Gehinnom. So now we're going to learn other things about disrespecting a Talmid Chacham. Okay, so now we're going to learn about the importance of a Talmid Chacham. Bekulan shaninu b'mishnatenu, and Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says all of these 24, they're all in the Mishnah. Okay, there are 24 cases where someone gets excommunicated because of the way they're treating a rabbi, a kavod harav, and they're all in the Mishnah. They're all in the book of Mishnayos. Amar le Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar said to him, to Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, Hecha, where? It's not in. There's no Mishnah in all of Shas that says here are the 24 people. There's no list like that. So you come and you say that there's 24 people and they're all in the Mishnah. What he really means is like you have to go find them. There's one over here, one over there, one over here, one over there. So Rabbi Elazar says, where's the 24? So Amar le, he tells him, Lechi tishkach, go find it. What are you asking me? You're asking. I'm telling you, it's there. You want to find out? You go get your master's. It's something you have to go work and you have to get. Or you want me to just give it all to you? It takes hard work to find it all. Okay, we have a chat comment. Does the Gemara, Elon's asking, Elon, it's amazing. You're with your question. Here we go. Does the Gemara give any clear explanation of what constitutes a Talmid Chacham? No, not here. It does not really tell us what definition of a Talmid Chacham is. It's a good question. It's a good question. We could see a little bit about Talmid Chacham. We could see maybe in the Rambam a little bit about that, but it's a good question. No, let's take it. Let's stipulate that a Talmid Chacham, we know what that is. It's someone who is wise and knowledgeable in the laws of Torah and represents the Misorah, represents the tradition, he's an ambassador of the Torah. Okay, it's a good question of exactly how you define it. All right. So Rabbi Elazar says to Rabbi Yehoshua, "You're telling me there's 24 cases of nidui for kavod harav in the Mishnah. Where are they?" And he says, "Go find it. What are you asking me for? Go find it." So nefak. So he went out and dak. He did his research. So fine. It's a good project. I'll go and I'll learn all of Shas Mishnayot. Probably took him a few minutes. Learned all of Shas Mishnayot. Ve'ashkach talat, and he found 3. Okay. What are the 3 that he found? Hamizalzel ben Netilas Yadayim. One who disgraces, who belittles the obligation of Netilas Yadayim, which is a rabbinic requirement. Excuse me. So if someone belittles the requirement of Netilas Yadayim, it's belittling the Chachamim who made this enactment. So that's one person. If someone belittles Netilas Yadayim, we're going to see that is deserving of nidui, of being excommunicated. Next, speaking negatively about the life of a Talmid Chacham, which is something that's why we have this connection, because we were speaking about one who speaks about Talmid Chacham after he dies in a negative way. The last Gemara said that he goes to Gehinnom. So this is also why it's related. It's the second person who gets nidui. And the third one, v'hamegis da'ato kelape ma'ala, one who speaks arrogantly vis-a-vis towards Hashem. Someone who, how does the article translate it?
Insolent towards Hashem.
Yeah, someone who is insolent toward the one above. It's someone who's very arrogant towards Hashem, and we're going to see like an example of that. What does this have to do with Kavod Harav? Obviously, because if someone is insolent towards Hashem and arrogant and very obnoxious towards Hashem, he's obviously going to be obnoxious towards Chachamim as well, and so that it falls under the same category of this disrespect. Now it happens to be it's a disrespect for Hashem, which is even a higher level, but it goes hand in hand in the list of 24 people that when they disrespect the Talmid Chacham, that they're going to get nidui. This is obviously included because it's a step up. Okay, so we're now going to talk about where. So far you're good. So far you're with me. We have Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says there are 24 cases, 24 actions of someone who would be put into nidui because of a disrespect that he has towards a rabbi. Rabbi Elazar says, "Where's the list?" And he says, "No, there's no list. You have to go find it. It's in all of Mishnayos. It's in the Mishnah. You have to go find it." So he went and he searched and he found 3 of them. So what we're going to do now is we're going to say the 3 that he found, where are they? So we're going to list the Mishnayos that he found, analyze them. So now we go through the list of 3. And then what should be the natural question? Once we're done analyzing that 3, what should be the natural question? Yeah, but he said there's 24. So how do you go from 24 to only 3? I found 3. I'll go over the 3. Where's the rest of it? And then another question that's going to be related to that is, what if I find other ones that are not on your list of 24, and I find even more? Then I can say, well, how come you did not include those? That could also be part of the discussion, and this is how we're going to go through this Gemara. And then we could conclude this with, I could show you a little bit of the Rambam that has a list of 24, where we're not going to see all of them, but we could see that the Rambam's list, and we're not going to see it in the Rambam either, but just to put a bow on the subject when we're done, we could look at the Rambam where he lists out the 24. Okay? So here we go. What are the 3 that he found? The 3 that he found is disgracing and belittling Netilas Yadayim, because that's an enactment of the rabbis. Netilas Yadayim before eating a meal is a rabbinic requirement. Speaking negatively about a Talmid Chacham after they die, and megis dato klape mala, speaking arrogantly and obnoxiously towards Hashem. Okay, here we go. The first one, what is the Mishnah that says that if someone were to speak negatively against a Talmid Chacham, that he would be put in nidui? Ditnan, because we learned in the Mishnah, Hu Haya Omer. This is the rabbi named Akavya ben Mahalalel. There was a rabbi named Akavya ben Mahalalel. He was of the opinion that ein mashkin, that we don't give mei sota, the sota waters, we don't give it ein mashkin lo et gioret v'lo et mishuchreret, not the gioret and not the mishuchreret. So without getting too much into it, there is a law of an isha sota. Isha sota is in Parshat Naso. There's an entire Masechet called Masechet Sota, where the topic is about a man and a woman who are married, and the woman was doing improper things with another man, and the husband confronted her and said, "Why are you going in private with another man?" and said something to her, and she did it anyway. So the thing is, when it's behind closed doors, you don't know exactly what they did, but clearly she's fooling around. Whether they went all the way or not is not clear. So what the Torah says is that they're not allowed to be together, this husband and woman. And the only way that they could be together is if she drinks from this sota waters. And there's a process. They have to take a scroll that writes the sota parchment, writes the sota parasha about the sota on a parchment. It has to be erased. It has to be put in the water. She has to drink it. And if she was clean, meaning she didn't do anything wrong, then they'll be able to be together. And if not, then they won't be able to be together because she's going to end up dying. Okay? Without getting too much into it, the question is, what happens if she wasn't born a Jew? This woman, either she's a convert, or she was a shifcha hamshukreret, which means she was a non-Jew that was a slave, or a maid really, and then as once she came into the Jew's home to work as a slave, she then converts to Judaism, but not through a conversion process, through this being a freed maid, which is, you're ending up in the same place. You're becoming a Jew through a conversion process, just like which channel you're taking. So there is a, let me show you. If you look at footnote 17, okay, it's footnote 17, it says in the second paragraph, it says, Akavya ben Mahalalel derives this from the fact that the biblical passage describing the Sota procedure begins with, speak to the children of Israel, Bnei Israel. It says, it could have said, Daber el Israel. But it says, Daber el Bnei Israel, to the children of Israel. There's an extra word there. What is that coming to? This is the extra word. It's coming to tell you that the whole passage of Sota refers specifically to someone that was born a Jew. Okay? So that means if someone is a Jew, but they weren't born a Jew, then they wouldn't have the Sota waters. That's the opinion of Akavya ben Mahalalel. So far, so good. So according to Akavya ben Mahalalel, a convert, Jewish convert woman, that the husband was in the situation, then she goes in seclusion with the guy, she does not, the Mei Sota waters does not, she can't drink it. It doesn't apply to her. That's the opinion of Akavya ben Mahalalel. The Chachamim say no, it's fine. They're also included. They're a Jew, they have the status of a full Jew, they're allowed to. Okay, and not they're allowed to, they're supposed to. It's a machloket between one opinion, Akavya ben Mahalalel, and the Chachamim. So far, it's just a machloket. There's no disrespect here, right? We're going to talk about Akavya ben Mahalalel. There was actually some disrespect which got him into nidui, but so far so good. Ve'amrulo, so they said to Akavya ben Mahalalel, Chachamim said to him, "You're saying it doesn't apply, but there's a problem. Maaseh beKarkemit. There's a story with a woman. Her name was Karkemit, or she was from the area of Karkemit. But let's just say it was her name. Shivcha meshuchreret b'Yerushalayim. She was a convert." She was a maid that was freed and became a Jew. She lived in Yerushalayim. Vehishkua Shemaya v'Avtalion, and Shemaya and Avtalion, who were the leaders of the Jewish people, they were the Nasi and the Beis Din, the president and the vice president. They administered sota, a procedure for this woman. So Akavya ben Mahalalel says a convert doesn't have mesota. Their response is, what do you mean? Shemaya and Avtalion did it. What's his response? He responded to them, Dugma hishkua. What does the word dugma mean? Example. It's something that's similar. Okay? There's really two ways to explain this. So I just want to, this is the first way, the way Rashi explains it. Dugma is a sample. It's something that's similar. They're saying, Dugma, she is a sample of them. Hishkua, that, therefore, they gave her to drink it. What does that mean? Shemaya and Aftalion, as the Talmud tells us, I believe it's Mizrach Gitin, that they themselves were not born, either they were not born Jewish or their parents weren't born Jewish. They were converts. Shemaya and Aftalion, who was the Nasi and the Beis Din, they themselves were converts, or they were the children of converts. Okay? There's a lot of stories about this. There's a Gemara Masechet Yoma about this. There's a Rambam about this. There's a lot about this. Shemaya and Aftalion weren't, let's just say either they were converts themselves or they were the children of converts. So what did Akavya ben Malalel say? He says, they're biased. What do you mean? I'm telling you that a convert's not supposed to have. You're telling me that Shemaya and Aftalion gave it to them? Yeah, because they're biased. They themselves are converts. They want the converts to be everything the same. So they administered it. They did the wrong thing. Whoa. Now what you're saying is that what are you doing? You're accusing the head of the Sanhedrin, Shemaya, and the second of the Sanhedrin of taking the law into their own hands and changing the law for their own personal benefit. See, you have a machloket about whether a convert should have the meisotah. So you say they don't have to have it. Chachamim say they have to have it. They're saying, well, we have a story of Shemaya and Aftalion that did it. What's his response? They're biased. They did the wrong thing on purpose because they wanted to just get themselves in. What? You speak about that. You speak about Shemaya and Aftalion, the Nasi and the Sanhedrin, in that way. It's very negative. Let me just finish this and we'll come to questions. What happened? Dugma, Hishkua, they're a sample. This woman is a sample. How do they translate it? They say, like them, Dugma, therefore, since they are like them, Hishkua, they gave her to drink, Benidu, and they excommunicated him. Umet Beniduyo, he died while he was in his excommunicated state, which means he didn't ask for forgiveness and he didn't go try to do teshuvah, so he died. V'saklu betin et arono. And when he died, this is a Kavya ben Manael. He was one of the Tanaim. We just brought a machloka with him. It's a very high status. When he died, at his funeral, they stoned his casket to show a level of disrespect to the body, because that's what happens when someone is excommunicated. To maintain the excommunication. If they afterwards say, no, it's okay, fine, you know what, he was a good person, we forget about it, then people will come to do these types of things again. You have to stay firm. You excommunicated him. He never asked for permission, for forgiveness. He died in that excommunicated state. They stoned his aron. Now we're going to end up seeing that they didn't actually pelt it, but they put a stone on top of it to show how he died, to make it a symbol. This person was different than others. He deserves to be stoned because of the way he acted, or his casket deserves to be stoned. Okay, we're not done with this discussion, but I saw there were some questions, so I'll pause for any questions on this. Questions? Yeah.
The parents told the one that convert being denied it would be like an insult. Like, does she just die?
Okay, good question.
Yeah, like she's winning. Yeah, if she can just like say, "Oh, I don't have to drink it," or is she been sentenced to death automatically?
Okay, so it's a good question. Now what you're saying is, the question is as follows. The way you're excluding someone from having the Mesotah, it sounds like you're taking a benefit away from them. It's like, you weren't born a Jew, so you don't get this benefit. But it's like, what benefit is this? Drinking the Mesotah is not a benefit. It could end up hurting, right? That's your question. So, like, ask her. She doesn't want to do it. So why are you going to force her to do it? The answer is because, yeah, if she was wrong, she'll die. But there's a benefit to the Mesotah.
Oh, is she never allowed to be with her husband now?
Correct.
Okay.
So what happens is a woman in this status, a woman that her husband said, don't go with so-and-so guy privately, and then she's secluded with him, and there was witnesses that she's secluded with him, they're not allowed to be together anymore. That's it. Marriage over. Right? This is the halacha. So since the marriage is over, the husband and wife are not allowed to be with each other. When she drinks from the Mesotah, there's a benefit in the sense that if she survives, that means she didn't do anything wrong, and then the husband and wife are now allowed to be with each other. So really the Mesotah is a tool to help the couple come back together.
Either way, he didn't feel guilty.
So now, okay, so
Right up.
here's so if
If he's right.
okay, so now you're saying like if they weren't supposed to have it and they had it anyway, then it's not going to work.
So then it's a really big problem.
Then it's a problem because then she's going to go back to be with her husband when really there's no sign. So okay, so this is why Akavia ben Malalel stood up for his opinion.
Very hard.
He stood up for his views. The issue is not that he stood up for his view. The issue is that he insinuated that the judges were biased. It's one thing if you say, I understand what they said, but I disagree with them, and here's my proofs, and this is I want to fight for this. That's one thing. But if someone starts saying like you're biased, you have this background, so that's insinuating that the judge is a biased judge. That's a what's the word when you're it's a charge. It's it's an accusation. It's an accusation not just to anyone, but to the head of the Sanhedrin. You're going to the head of the Jewish court and you're accusing him of corruption. That's a heavy charge. So that person gets nidui. Okay, the fact that he stood up for his value, and this is actually what the commentators say is that okay, afterwards they went to him and they said, look, you did something wrong, but you're not gonna be given a proper burial. Go apologize, say something, say you're sorry, just, make peace and move on. And he said, no, I can't bend from the truth. So there's what's admirable about him is that he won't back down from what he thinks is the truth, but he didn't have to do it this way. And this is what this Mishnah is telling us. He died in his excommunicated state, and then Beis Din, they pelted him, or they put stones on his casket to say that he died in his nidui. Okay, so this is the first case. Why are we even bringing this? Because Yehoshua ben Levi told us there's 24 situations that if someone shows disrespect to a Chacham, that he'll get excommunicated. And Rabbi Elazar went and found one. This is one of them. Okay, here's the situation in the Mishnah where you learn one. Okay, let's keep going. Yes. I think so. I don't think so. It's a good question. Yeah, it's a good question because I'm not sure, but I think so. I think that's part of the process. I think becomes a Jew. I think that's how it works. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think so. So, okay, you guys are asking good questions. You're asking a question about Isha Sota details. You're asking a question about the Eved Kanani details. The truth is that this is more of a tangential to just get us to the point of the fact that they disrespected, but you're asking very valid questions that hopefully we can get up to later. Yes.
Is there going to be like a difference between them? Meaning, like, are they just examples of situations where people got communicated, or are they like different?
Okay,
We learn something.
Okay, excellent. So let's put your question on pause until we see the three that we're going to see. Right? Josh's question is these 24, are they just examples of the same exact thing? Are we going to see three stories that are identical, or maybe just different names of very similar, or are they covering different types of situations? Right? So let's see the three that we have and see if we could answer that question ourselves from the three that we have. Okay? Good. Let's keep going. Wow, a lot of people joined the Zoom. Shalom Aleichem to everyone. Sorry you're not getting individual mentions, but let's keep going. All right. Next one. Hamizazel ben Netilas Yadayim mahi. The next one that Rabbi Elazar found is that someone who belittles Netilas Yadayim, disgraces Netilas Yadayim. Why? Because it's a rabbinic enactment. Mahi, where do you see that in the Mishnah? Did none. The next Mishnah, from the last one we just read about Akavia ben Malalel, the very next Mishnah, Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, Chas v'shalom she'Akavia ben Malalel nitnada. Chas v'shalom that Akavia ben Malalel, one of the Tanaim, that he was put in excommunication, and you got the story completely wrong. Where'd you hear this story? You're telling me a story that Akavia ben Malalel disrespected Shemayan after then? You made this story up. The story's never happened. That's not the details of the story. Completely fabricated, completely made up. That's not what happened. She'ein azaran in elet al kol adam b'Yisrael b'chokhma v'tahara u'v'yirat chet ka'Akavia ben Malalel. Because, again, this is in the context of something else. It's really not related. But in Masechet Pesachim, it teaches us that on Erev Pesach, everyone would have to bring a Korban Pesach. On the day before Pesach, everyone would have to partake in a portion of the Pesach offering, which was a sheep or a goat, and it was brought to the Beit HaMikdash. It had to have been done in the Beit HaMikdash. Okay, so people would come forward as families, and like maybe 10 people would have a sheep, or 10 people would have a goat, and then they would have to go do the shechitah. It was a crazy operation. You're talking about how many Jews are there? You're talking about like millions of animals, and they all have to happen within a 6-hour window. It's wild. So it was very like it was like a crazy production. The Kohanim, you guys, you took care of it, but what would happen is that there would be a point where they would have to close the doors because like they don't fit anymore. They would get almost like 3 rounds. Get everyone in, close the doors, do it, get these people out, get the next batch in, close the doors. So it's saying how one time they had to close the doors, and they had to close the doors on a kavya ben malal. But that's okay, right? Like if you're going to be next on line, you'll be the first into the next group. That's not a problem. And the way they're saying it here is they're saying like, even if you have the greatest rabbi who is a tremendous Talmid Chacham and his fear of sin, even if it's like a kavya ben malal, you still have to like cut the line. Okay, so don't let anyone cut the line. But the way that it says it is she'en azara nin'elet al kol ha'adam beYisrael bechokma uvtahara uvirat chet kavya ben malal. Let me read to you how they translated it. Meaning that even when all of Israel made a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, when each of the 3 groups that gathered to offer the Paschal lamb filled the courtyard, leading to the temple administration to close the courtyard, they had to close it. There was no one there as perfect in wisdom, purity, and fear of sin as Kavya ben Malal. As it's talking about it, he was the greatest one. Okay, so the point is that he was someone important. What are you telling me he was a nidui? That doesn't make any sense. Ella et mi nidui. Who was excommunicated during that time? Et Elazar ben Chanoch. It was a different person. His name was Elazar ben Chanoch. What did he do? Shepikpek ben Netilas Yadayim. He made fun of Netilas Yadayim. He said, "Oh, do you have to do this? You don't have to do this. You just take a napkin or just do this. You don't have to do Netilas Yadayim." So you got the who wrong and you got the what wrong. You said a Kavya ben Malal made fun of Shemayan of Talion. What are you talking about? It's Elazar ben Chanoch that made fun of Netilas Yadayim. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Uchshemet, when Elazar ben Chanoch died, what happened? Shalchu Beis Din, ve'inichuhu even gedola al arono. In his situation, it tells us more explicitly. It doesn't say that they stoned his casket. It said that Beis Din, the court, went and they put a huge stone on his casket. To teach you, shekol hamitnadeh umet b'nediyo, anyone that is excommunicated and dies in that state, Beis Din soklin et arono, it's worthy for Beis Din to stone the casket. There has to be some amount of disrespect because the person died in his nidui. The purpose of nidui is also to help prevent other people from doing this. So when you excommunicate someone, people will see it and they're not going to do it. So even after the death, and then if someone hopefully just like hits someone, it's just like I can't do this, and I won't come to do actions that are chayav nidui. Okay, these are 2 that we found. I know that there's a lot of questions. We'll get to them now, but these are 2 examples. The first one was disrespecting Shemayan of Talion. The second one, which happens to be, it's a machloket, but it's another opinion in the Gemara and the Mishnah, is disgracing Netilas Yadayim. Yes, question here.
Put a rock on grave of a loved one.
Yeah, that's not on the aron. This is the aron is the actual casket. They don't do this on the casket itself. I actually don't think, but even if they do, that's a different thing. That's a different thing. What is it?
It's saying like a big stone.
Yeah. It's something that, and it's sent from the court. There's like something passed, but yeah, and I have seen people do that. They put it on the tombstone. Yeah. Okay, there was someone on the Zoom that had a question.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
So if the second reason for the person who doesn't wash their hands, it sounds like that negates the first proof. So then, according to him, what would be the proof for the first part?
So it's not a proof; it's an example. So what happens is, okay, good question. You're saying, according to Rabbi Yehuda, a Kavya ben Malal never did this, right? Correct. He would say this never happened, but had it happened, the person would have gotten nidui. What's true is that disrespect of a Talmid Chacham gets nidui. Rabbi Yehuda does not disagree with that. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees that happened to Akavia ben Malalel. He says it didn't happen to him. You got the details of your story wrong. That's a true fact that's in the Mishnah, but it's just not true that it happened to Akavia ben Malalel. Remember, keep in mind, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said there's 24, but there's no list. Go find them. So he's going finding them. This is a topic of discussion. Now, someone argues that it actually happened. Fine, but that's an example that's in the list of what would deserve nidui. Okay, the machloket is not whether he deserved nidui or not. It's whether he did the action that it deserves nidui or not. But they both agree that he deserves. Everyone would agree that action would get nidui.
Okay, and does the Netilas Yadayim be specific, or is like anything that the rabbi said considered? Like you?
Yeah. So this was Josh's question. Josh's question is like, are these all specific examples, or are these more broader things? Let's wait. Let's go through the list to see the three. We could think this through, and then we'll see the Rambam, who has a list of 24. Okay. That's a good question. All right. So you had a question? Go ahead.
Excommunication, what does it entail? Like, they get sent to Galut? Like,
No. They don't get sent. Excommunication doesn't mean that you get sent out, but there are certain honors of the community that they don't get involved with. We're already seeing what it means for the funeral. For the funeral, it means that they would stone the casket. There's other things. Can't be involved with communal affairs. And again, I think that's also part of it. It's a good question. I think for our purposes, it's not good, right? It's not something that someone wants, and it's definitely not something good. Where I guess I'm not trying to go through all of the details of like what the nidui process is here, because we're just more trying to pass through. The point here is that you have to have a tremendous amount of respect for Talmidei Chachamim. But you're asking a good question. I want to look at the Rambam afterwards. Hopefully we could button up some of these questions. So these are the questions that you guys have asked so far. Elon asked, how do you define a Talmid Chacham? Tomer's asked, what are all the implications of being in nidui? What does it mean to be nidui? And Josh is asking, like, are we going through specific examples here, specific situation scenarios, or are they more examples of more generic things? Okay, so a lot of questions about nidui. Okay, let's keep going. All right. Number 3. Hamegis da'ato klape mala. One who is arrogant towards Hashem. Mahi. What is this case? The answer is whoever was with us for Masechet Ta'anit, or even if you were not, we learned the story with Choni Hama'agel. There was a rabbi, his name was Choni Hama'agel. There was a time that they didn't have rain. So they went to the rabbi and they said, Rabbi, we need rain. We're trying everything. We're praying. We're fasting. It's not working. Work your magic. And he says, okay. Ribbono shel olam, your children are coming to me because you're not taking care of them right now. He didn't say it like that, but he says there's a level of arrogance in what he says. He doesn't say that. What he says is, your children are relying on me. I'm going to make a circle in the ground here, and I am not leaving this circle until you make it rain. We need rain. I demand you make it rain, and I'm not leaving. So what Hashem could just say is, fine, don't leave. You know, it's like someone who comes and threatens to quit. Don't let the door hit you on your way out. But what happens, all of a sudden it starts raining. But it starts raining like a crazy storm. Or actually, first it starts drizzling, small amounts, which it's just like a mist. So Choni says, funny. Good one, God. That's not what I was asking for. Lo kach shalti. I didn't ask for a mist. I didn't ask for a little spritz. You know, on those sunny days, you go to the thing and they put a mist on. I wasn't asking for that. I want water that'll fill up the reservoirs that are low, waters that are going to fill up the lakes. We want heavy rain. Then all of a sudden, it starts raining heavy. And then it's so heavy that it starts destroying things. It's a hurricane. And he says, I like your sense of humor, Hashem. That's not what I asked for. I want rain that's bracha and dava. It's something that we could grow. Trees are going to grow. Plants are going to grow. Vegetation is going to grow. And then what happened? He got the right amount of rain. Everything was perfect. And then he left the circle. Okay. Then what ended up happening is it started raining so much. And then the Gemara that further tells us that he went to Hashem. He says, okay, we don't turn it off. We don't need it anymore. So there was a level of disrespect in his speaking. But what happened? Everything he said, Hashem answered. So this is what happened from the contemporary of the time. His name was Rabbi Shimon ben Shatach. Okay, let's see our Gemara. Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah. This is Masechet Ta'anit. Shalach lo Shimon ben Shatach. So Shimon ben Shatach sent a letter, sent to a message. Lechoni ha'ma'agel. Techoni. What did he tell him? Sarich ata lehitnadot. You should be excommunicated. The way you're publicly speaking towards God as though you get to control him, this is deserving of to be excommunicated. If not for the fact that you were a choni, I would put you in excommunication. I would put you in idui. But what should I do? You're sinning in front of God. But Hashem does what you say. So what am I going to do? I'm going to punish you? Clearly Hashem's okay with what you're saying because he's giving you exactly what you want. It's like it's a boy that's sinning. He's having a tantrum in front of his dad. And he's saying, I want this, and the dad gives it to him. He says, no, I want that one. He says, okay, I'll give you that one. Hey, no, whatever you want, I'll give it to you. So he says, what am I going to do? Put you in Idui? I can't get myself involved with the parenting. God is answering you. God's giving you what you want. So I'm not going to insert myself. If God wasn't answering you, I would have said, how dare you speak this way to Hashem? I'll put you in Idui. But since Hashem is answering you, I can't put you in Idui. And it's about you, this pasuk that says, Yismach avicha ve'emecha v'tagel yo'atecha. Pasuk in Mishlei that says, your father and mother is happy over you. They're rejoicing over you. Meaning, clearly, Ribono Shel Olam is happy with how you're acting, so I won't put you in Idui. But what he says is, if you were anyone else, I would put you in Idui. Okay, this is our third example. What did he do wrong? He was megis da'ato lefnei hamakom. He was speaking arrogantly and obnoxiously to Hashem. And what you see from the story is Shimon ben Shatach says, if you were anyone else, I would put you in Idui. The only reason I'm not is because Hashem is answering you. But you see, someone who does this publicly goes out to Hashem and says that we demand you do this. I don't want you to do this. I want you to do that in an obnoxious, disrespectful way. That person will also be in Idui. These are the three examples that Rabbi Elazar found of specifically someone in the Mishnah being excommunicated. Once was Akavia ben Malalel. Another time was, what was his name? Elazar ben Chanoch. Yeah, Rabbi Elazar ben Chanoch was the second one. And the third one was Choni HaMe'agel. Okay? Betuleka. The Gemara first asks on Rabbi Elazar. Okay, so far so good? We found three. So before we ask what about the rest of them, the first the Gemara is saying, maybe we could recreate, maybe we could find more. Why did Rabbi Elazar stop at three? There's more. I have one. Betuleka, there's no more than that. V'ha'ika d'tana Rav Yosef. There's one in the Braita of Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef taught a Braita. What was in Rav Yosef's Braita? Todos, Ish Romi, his name was Todos, Theodosius. Wow, like Teddy, right? Todos, Teddy. It's like a modern Theo. So Theodosius of Rome, he was a leader of the Jewish community there. So they were living in Rome. He was a prominent Jewish figure, very righteous person. What did he do? Hinhig et bnei Romi la'achilan gedaim mekulasin belele psachim. What would happen? He was a leader of the Jewish people in Rome, and he told them, everyone, tonight is Pesach. For Pesach, here's what we're going to do. Everyone take a sheep or a goat, just like they did in the Beit HaMikdash. And I want you to roast it, just like they did it for the Korban Pesach. Do it exactly the same way, which the Torah tells us is Rosho al Kibol al Achra'av. That means it has to be in the shape of the body. You don't cut it, you don't chop it, you don't boil it. They would put a skewer through the entire animal, skewer it, roast it, and then eat it. So this is what Todos would tell the people in Rome to do. Shalach le Shimon ben Shatach. So Shimon ben Shatach is at it again. He sends someone else a letter, and he says pretty much the same script. Ilmale Todos ata, if not for the fact that you were Todos, Gozreni alecha nidui, I would have put you in nidui. She'ata ma'achil et Yisrael kadashim b'chutz. Because what are you doing? You are telling people to eat kodashim in outside of Yerushalayim. What does this mean? This means that there was a enactment by the Chachamim. The Chachamim of the time said, look, there's no more Beit HaMikdash. since there's no more Beit HaMikdash, on the first night of Pesach, no one eats a roasted goat. A roasted sheep, you're not allowed to eat. Why? Because if someone does, they're going to say this is the Korban Pesach. So what if this is the Korban Pesach? Then you're going to think you're allowed to eat the Korban Pesach outside of Yerushalayim, but you're not allowed to. You guys might know this. On the night of Pesach, very good. Yeah, exactly. What happens is, it's Rabban Gamliel says that whoever doesn't say these three things on the night of Pesach didn't fulfill his obligation. What are the three things? Pesach, matzah, maror. So then afterwards we say matzah zo she'anachnu ochlim al shuma. You point to the matzah and you say, this matzah that we're eating, what is it for? Or you say maror ze she'anachnu ochlim al shuma. What is this maror that when you point to the maror and you say, what is this for? But you don't say Pesach ze she'anachnu ochlim. You shouldn't say ze. You shouldn't point to any chicken wings or chicken bones or any chicken feet, anything. Don't point. Why? Because it's not a korban Pesach. That's just a zecher, as what you said. We're bringing the shank bone on the table just as a remembrance. In fact, the Shulchan Aruch tells us that there are some communities that have a custom of not to eat any meat at all, red meat that night. Definitely not roasted meat, called tzli. Not to have roasted meat. Whatever it is, Chachamim of the time said, even forget about roasted meat. To take a goat and to skewer it in the exact way that they would do the Korban Pesach, Chachamim said don't do this. Why? For obvious reasons. Because if you do this, people are going to think you're eating the Korban Pesach. And if people think you're eating the Korban Pesach, what's going to happen? So what if people think you're eating the Korban Pesach? They think you're allowed to eat the Korban Pesach outside of Yerushalayim. The Beit HaMikdash was just destroyed. And now you're telling people it's okay to do Korbanot outside of Yerushalayim. That's a big problem. So what happened? Todos, the Roman, came and said, guys, we're not doing Korban Pesach, but I want everyone to remember Yod Degari. I want everyone to come do it. So Shimon ben Shadach says, what do you mean Chachamim said don't do this? Chachamim said don't do this. Why are you doing this? You're going against the word of Chachamim. And if not for the fact that you were such a prominent, important person, I would put you in Nidui. So what do you see? You see from this Braita that if someone goes against the word of Chachamim, then they make a takana, and you go against them, that you should be put in Nidui. So here's an example of someone gets Nidui by going against the word of Chachamim. How come Rabbi Elazar didn't include this in his list? Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi has 24. Rabbi Elazar went and searched. He found 3, and now we're saying, what do you mean? We found another one. Why didn't he include this in his list?
Rabbi, it seems like the last 2 rabbis got like a free pass because they're like, I don't know, rabbis or like holy people.
Yeah. So that's correct. It actually is the same Rabbi Shimon ben Shatach who said the same thing. He said, I would put you in Nidui if not for the fact that Hashem answered your tefillot. For Todos, Ishromi, he's saying, I would put you in Nidui if not for the fact that we know that you're a very important person. So you're correct that like Shimon ben Shatach isn't actually putting them in Nidui. But again, the point is not to talk about the specific story. It's the rule that you're learning out from this. The same thing with Akavia ben Malalel. You might say that he didn't get it either because he didn't do it. But the rule that you're learning it from this is that a person who does this is deserving of Nidui. That's what Shimon ben Shatach says. Granted, he didn't give it in this incident, but you're learning from him that this is an example. Look, you have to get up to 24. Yehoshua ben Levi said there's 24. You find someone in the Mishnah or in the Braita that has a Nidui, you want to add it to your list. So that it's good. You're making a good point that you're actually not giving him Nidui. But what we're doing is we're trying to find examples of Nidui in the Mishnah, and he says you should be deserving of Nidui. Okay, yes?
They're telling an average guy, like, don't do this. Whatever you're saying, like, Akavia ben Malel, he's a Talmid Chacham also. Like, obviously he wouldn't get Nidui, but and then the same thing here, like Honi or Todos, they're Talmidei Chachamim also.
Could be.
You wouldn't give them Nidui.
Yeah. It could be you have this common flow between all of them. And these are important characters. So for a regular person, hey guys, we're not trying to understand how Chachamim administer this Nidui because maybe there are some exceptions to the rule. These are exceptions to the rule because you're told. So you have to analyze that. It's a good point. But the rule that we're learning is that if someone goes against Takanat Chachamim, they get Nidui. Okay? So how come Rabbi Elazar didn't include this in his list? Yes.
No, I was just thinking like this is just one person's opinion. It's not saying that this is what Chachamim decided would happen. This is just this one person's.
Shimon ben Shattach was the Nasi. He was a spokesman. He was speaking for the Sanhedrin.
Okay.
It's like almost like saying the president of the United States of America. You could say that's the opinion of one person, but it's a very the seat is a very important seat. He's the Nasi of the Sanhedrin. Shimon ben Shattach was very important. So that's why it wasn't just that he was an individual person. He's sending a letter with the full force of the Sanhedrin behind him. Okay, so let's see. Why? Yeah. Akavia ben Malalel doesn't have it. Todos doesn't have it. Shimon ben Shattach doesn't have it. Yeah. Elazar ben Chanoch doesn't have it. Okay. Good questions. Good questions. I don't have an answer. Maybe their smicha was stripped because of. Okay, the question, I'll just say this for the recording. Jared asked a very good question. He's picking up a pattern that all of the rabbis that we're speaking about do not have the title rabbi. Even Shimon ben Shattach, it doesn't say Rabbi Shimon ben Shattach. It says Shimon ben Shattach. It says Todos Ishromi, Akavia ben Malalel, Elazar ben Chanoch. So, right? I keep forgetting the names. Elazar ben Chanoch, right? Yeah, but Rabbi Yehuda wasn't even part of the story. He was arguing about the details of the story. Yeah, you have Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, and you have Rabbi Elazar, and you have Rabbi Yehuda, but they're not the characters of the stories. Why are none of them rabbis? Okay, there's got to be an answer. It's got to be an answer. Good question. Good question. It could be it's a time period. Maybe it's a time period. Yeah, also Shemayan. Just throw it in. Shemaya and Avtalion also were in Rabbi Shemaya and Rabbi Avtalion. Wow! You know what this means? It means you don't have to be a rabbi to have such an impact in the world of Torah. You could do it without being a rabbi. You could do it with being a gabbai. You could do it with being a kohen. You could do it with being a Levi. You could do it with being a Yisrael. You could do it by being a mister. You could do it by doing a kid. I don't know. Honestly, I'm just throwing that out there, but it's good questions. Good questions. Let's keep going. I don't have the answer. But what we're in the flow of the Gemara, what we're up to now is Rabbi Elazar found 3. And he gave a list of 3. We analyzed those 3 and then we said, I found another one. The story of Todos. So what does the Gemara answer? The Gemara answers, B'mishnatenu ka'amrina. No. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said he found 24 in our Mishnah. It's in the Mishnah. You just brought me a story of Todos Ishromi. That's from a Braita. Yehoshua ben Levi said it's in the Mishnah. I'm looking for 24 in the Mishnah. That's why Rabbi Elazar didn't count this, because it's not in the Mishnah. He told him, go find 24 in the Mishnah. He went and he found 3 in the Mishnah. Okay. This was just a Braita. The Gemara says, oh, uvematnitin leka. You don't have another one in the Mishnah? I have one more in the Mishnah. What is this one? I believe this is Masechet Bava Metzia. Right? All right, this is a very famous story. And by the way, if we were like experts of Mishnayot, this daf would be like so much more like powerful, because it's like, wow, oh, this from here, wow, this from here, whatever. But when you're learning the Mishnayot through here, it's sort of like, okay, we're going through a list. But imagine like you had all of these Mishnayot and the magic of Rabbi Elazar went and he found these 3 things. Imagine I tell you, give me 3 examples in the Torah of something. Like right now you thought of the 3. So that's what he did. He went and they found the 3 and then like, oh, I found one more. Like, no, that's Braita. Like, okay, I found one more. Here's the other one I found in the Mishnah. We don't have another one in Mishnah. We learned another one in the Mishnah that says as following. Chatacho chuliot v'natan chol ben chulya lechulya. Rabbi Eliezer metaher v'chachamim metameim. Okay, what is this case? The case is as follows. There is a rule, halakha, that says if there is something that is an earthenware vessel, an earthenware vessel is something that is like kli cheres, is like pottery, okay, not stone, not wood, but earthenware. It's clay. You have a pot made out of clay. Okay, hold on a second. Let's say it's made out of metal. I have a metal pot. Let's take it one step at a time so you see the contrast. Let's say there's a metal pot, okay? This metal, you go to Bed Bath & Beyond and you buy a nice Rachel Ray metal pot and you come. Then all of a sudden what happens is there's a dead rodent in the pot. What now happens is this pot becomes tameh. So what if it becomes tameh? In the Kohen residence, You're not allowed to eat, let's say, for example, truma, that's kohen. That's truma, that's kohen. Truma, that's tameh. So in the kohen residence, they're going to eat truma, and then you have your Rachel Ray pot. All of a sudden, there's a dead rat in there. You have to cook your truma right now. It's not allowed because it's going to come tameh. So what are they going to do in the kohen residence? So since it's metal, it's very simple. What do? Take it to the mikveh. That's it. You dunk it in a mikveh, and it's tahor. It became impure. Put in the mikveh, it becomes pure. Okay. Now let's talk about earthenware, kli cheres, a situation where it's not made out of metal, but it's made out of clay, like porcelain. What's porcelain? What's a porcelain mug made out of? Clay. This is it. This is what we're talking about. So you have like a porcelain pot. What happens? A rat goes inside. Oh, it became tameh. So what do? Can you put it in the mikveh? No. The Torah tells us, Parashat Shemini. Very good. You have to break it. You have to shatter it. You have to break it. If you break it and then afterwards put it together through a process and remake it, then you recycle, it's fine. But the way you have its tumah coming off is by shattering it. So now here's the situation. What happens if someone had the kli cheres? Okay.
Even if the rat is not in there?
Correct. Once it becomes tameh, the source of tumah doesn't need to be there anymore. This is a rat. Oh, it's this one. This is a dead rat. This is the tail of a rat. It goes inside. Boom, tameh. Take this out. It has to be dead. If it's alive, it's fine. Disgusting, but it's fine. It's not tameh. It's just probably disease-filled, but it's not tameh. Now, what happens is this becomes tameh. Since it's kli cheres, you have to break it. Now, what happens is, let's say they had an oven. The oven was made out of kli cheres, but the oven was so large, it was like a huge pot, right? It's an oven, but it's like a huge pot. So it has a kli cheres status. Became tameh. What happened? They sliced it, they cut it, they broke it, and then instead of welding it together through heat and through fire, they did it through sand, through chol. Yeah. Basically, they made more pottery and they put it back together. It didn't go through the process of being heated up, but they just put it back together. So they patched it. Yeah, exactly. They patched the pot back together. Is it glued it up? Does this lose the status, or did you say you're still using it? You're still using it in its thing. Do you have to go through the process of heating it up? Or do you say that, no, I broke it up, it lost the status? Or, the machoket really is machoket rishonim. When you, that's one way of explaining it. You know what? There's two ways of explaining it. Let's just go with this for the simplicity. Then afterwards, I'll explain the other way.
Would that even be a question, though? It would just say you could heat it up. Is that breaking it up?
Okay. So let me give the second way of explaining it. The second way of explaining it is, and I'll explain it, then we'll look at the footnote. I think they word it nicely. The question is like this: if there is something that's not a kli, something that doesn't have the shem kli on it, it cannot become tameh. Something that has no purpose is not mekabel tumah. Okay, so maybe this is a better way, or is another way of explaining it. You have this kli. I sliced it. I broke it. Okay, it lost its tumah. Tumah is gone. Now what happens? I patch it together. When I patch it together, is it now considered a fixed kli? And since it's a fixed kli, it can become tameh again. If this happens again, it becomes tameh again. Or do you say, look, you're working with broken shards. There's no kli anymore. Yeah, you could cook whatever you want in there, but this is not really a kli. This thing is not mekabel tumah. It cannot be susceptible to becoming tameh anymore. Okay? The machloket between two opinions about whether this has a status of a kli, which means whether this can become tameh now or not. Okay? Let me read the footnotes for you guys. Help me find it. There we go. Okay, here we go. I'm going to read footnote 35 and 36 for the people on the Zoom. If you have an article, you could follow along. 35. The typical earthenware oven in the Talmudic times looked like a large pot. Right? We explained. It was usually hardened in a furnace as a single piece. cemented to the ground or to a board. So this is an additional thing. It's like they secure it to the ground. And then insulated with plaster so that it would retain its heat. This type of oven is basically portable and as such qualifies as a utensil, as a vessel, in that it could contract tumah. It could become tameh even after being cemented to the ground. Like all earthenware vessels, should this type of oven contract tumah, it cannot be purified by immersion in the mikveh like our metal pot. The only way to purify it is to demolish it. Indeed, the scripture states explicitly, and an oven or a stove that became tameh shall be demolished. In the case at hand, an oven became tameh. It was then sliced horizontally into rings as a way of demolishing it. The guy, what did he do? He had some sort of a chainsaw, went cut it into sling. That's the way he did it. Now, the rings were then cemented back together with sand. So then he put them back together. 36. The Rebbe Elazar maintains that even after the oven is cemented back together with the sand, it continues to be tahor. It was tahor, and it remains tahor. The basis for his view is that the fact that an oven, in order to be susceptible to tumah, must be made of earthenware, which by definition must be fired in a kiln. Since the sand was never fired in this way, and since it is the sand now that holds the oven together, the entire oven has the status of a kli adama. It has a mudware vessel, which is not susceptible to tumah. If you have a vessel that's made out of sand, then it doesn't get tameh. And since the sand is what's holding it together, Elazar says this does not become tameh. It is not able to become tameh. Footnote 37, the sages maintain that since the sections themselves at least are made of earthenware, the cemented oven is susceptible to tumah. This bracket is what I was saying to Gabriel's point. The Rishonim dispute whether, according to the sages, the oven automatically reverts to its original tameh state, as soon as it is cemented together again, or whether it remains tahor until it comes in contact with a new source of tumah. Okay, it's a dispute as to whether, like the Chachamim say, oh, you put it back, it goes back to its original tameh state, or all they're saying is that this can become tameh again. Whereas Rabbi Elazar says it cannot become tameh again. But the point is that Rabbi Elazar is saying in some form that this is not tameh. Chachamim is saying it is tameh. Okay, so far we have the machloket. Is there any disrespect? Any issues? No. All right, let's keep going. Wow. Honestly, I thought I would fly through these things. Is it? Do I have no more examples in the Mishnah? I found another example. This one, you have a question? No, okay. You slice this into rings, into discs, and then you put sand between the discs of this earthenware oven. Rabbi Elazar says it's tahor. It does not have tumah status. Chachamim say it is tameh. V'zehu tanuro shel achnai. This tanur was such a controversial question. This machloket became so controversial. You needed to give a name to it. You know what? If I tell you Watergate, what is Watergate? Yeah, Richard Nixon. You guys weren't even there, but I say a word, you know what I'm talking about. There's probably other things. Give me other examples of this. Deflategate. Okay, everyone knows that's talking about the PSI of Tom Brady. What else? There are incidents that you have a name for, and like, oh, you know what you're talking about, like the controversial situation. Okay, this is what the Mishnah says. This is the tanuro shel achnai. This is the achnai oven. What does achnai mean? Achnai is a snake. Okay, let's see. The Gemara is going to explain. My achnai. What is achnai that you call this the achnai oven? Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel melamed shekifu halachot keachnai zeh v'timu uhu. It's they call it a snake because of its double meaning. Number one, it looked like a coiled snake. This oven. Why? Because it was sliced, so it looked like a snake that was coiled. But also, the Chachamim pressured Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar really felt that he was correct, and he fought for his opinion. And Chachamim pressured him. And the whole Gemara tells us that he went and he cried to the trees, and he cried to Hashem, and he cried to the walls of the Beit Midrash, and he cried to this, and he said, guys, I said, Ribono Shel Olam, please, the halacha should be like me, the halacha should be like me. And then finally a voice calls up from heaven and says, stop bothering him, the halacha is like Rabbi Elazar, Chachamim, stop saying he's wrong, he's right. And what do they say? They say, Lo b'shamayim, it's not up to the heavenly voice, it's up to us. They pressured him, they like choked him. Yeah, exactly. Like what do you call it when a snake to strangle, to constrict? So this is why they call him a tanrosh alachnai. That's why the Gemara here is, it's like they surrounded Rabbi Elazar with halachot and proofs, like a snake surrounds its prey, and declared the oven and its contents ritually impure. Vitanya, and the Braita tells us further, Oto hayom, on that day, Hiviu kol taharot shetiyeh Rabbi Elazar, everything that went into this oven. I don't know what this must have been, like a huge, there was a lot of things that went through it. But according to Rabbi Elazar, it's tahor. According to Chachamim, it's tameh. So in the meantime, they were cooking a lot of our Kohen's trumot in there. And now Chachamim say, what are you doing with all of this trumah? You're not allowed to eat it. So they brought it all out. It was a whole catering hall. They brought out all of the food publicly in front of everyone, and they burned the food. They said you can't do anything with the food. Usrafum lefanav, and they burnt it while Rabbi Elazar was watching. Berachot, and at the end they blessed him. Blessed him is a euphemism for they excommunicated Rabbi Elazar. Okay, a lot of discussion. We're not going to go through the whole discussion of Masechet Bava Metzia here. There's a lot of discussion here where he called to the walls and he said, the walls, if I'm right, give me a sign. All of a sudden the walls started caving in, and the Chachamim said, doesn't bother me. Then he went somewhere else and he said, please, and it happened, and the Chachamim said, doesn't bother us. And he said, please, a voice from heaven come and call out and say, halacha is like me. And there's a voice from heaven that says, halacha is like Rabbi Elazar. And they said, it's not up to you. It's up to us. We're the court. We're the Chachamim. We hold this way. We don't care. So what happened is that this became such a controversial. I don't know why this became so controversial, but it became so controversial and became a public fight between Rabbi Elazar and all of the Chachamim. It's okay for them to be a machloket, but once it's a machloket that draws so much attention, you can imagine that what should happen is Rabbi Elazar eventually should submit. This is like, you should concede. You should say, look, this is how I hold, but for the sake of peace, for the sake of showing respect for the integrity of the system, the courts, the rabbis are all saying, now the like this, fine, we'll be strict. Like, it's not like he's saying it's pure, but they're saying, no, we don't want to do that way. So he should have given in, and he didn't give in, even though there was a heavenly voice on his side. They eventually put him in Nidui. Okay? So now going back to our case. Rabbi Elazar found 3 cases, and we said, oh, I found the 4th with Todos Ishrom. We said, no, that's in the Braita. But I found another one with Rabbi Eliezer. We say the story in the Mishnah, and then the Braita says, and at the end they put him in excommunication. So that's another one. So just how I framed it, tell me what the answer is going to be. The Mishnah tells us the story of the Tanrosh al-Achnai, and the Braita says, and at the end they excommunicated him. So what's the answer? The Mishnah itself doesn't say they excommunicated him, right? Afilu hachi nidui b'matintin lo tenan. It doesn't state in the Mishnah they excommunicated. Let me show you again. Vitanya, we learned in a Braita, Oto Hayom, on that day, they brought all of the food that he permitted, they burnt it in front of him, and then they excommunicated him. That was an addendum, an additional ending to the story that's brought in the Braita, but that's not in the Mishnah. The Mishnah does not quote the Nidui. And Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said there's 24 examples in the Mishnah. This isn't counted as one. That's why at least he didn't, Rabbi Elazar didn't include it in his list. Fine. Good. We had 24. Rabbi Elazar found 3. We found 2 more. We found Todos Ishromi. That was in the Braita. We found Rabbi Elazar and Chachamim with Tanrosh al-Achnai. The fact that he was put in Nidui was in the Braita. So we're down to 3. We're okay. Now we understand how Rabbi Elazar got his list. But then the Gemara asks, so how did Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi find me 24? Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, midame milta lemilta. You know how he got to 24? He found similar cases to these three in other Mishnayot. There'll be another Mishnah where there's a controversial discussion. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says, I'm going to count that. Because I know when there's a controversial discussion, I'm going to do this. Or he found a situation where someone accuses the Chachamim of being biased for a personal reason, like what happened with Akavya ben Malel. He says, I'm including that on my list. And he found 21 situations where he said, I'm going to put them in Nidui. Okay? Rabbi Elazar, lo medameh milta lemita. But Rabbi Elazar, you sent him on a mission. You said, go find it. He went and he looked. He didn't find it. He found those three only. Okay? All right. I need to take a breath. Can someone do me a favor and go through that flow of the Gemara? This is an easy flow. Okay? You should be able, high level, to tell me tonight's Gemara by heart, and then I want to look at the Rambam. Who can do it? I know you guys can do it. Come on. Someone. You can do it. You can do it. Come on, Itai. Start us off. Start us off. What did Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi say? What was Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi's opening statement?
Cases where you're getting doing for disrespect.
Very good. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi starts off with saying there's 24 cases where someone is excommunicated because of kavod harav, respect of a rabbi. Okay, so what happens after that? Rabbi Elazar says, okay, which list was this? I didn't find this Mishnah. What did he say? He says there's no list. You have to go find. It's throughout. I mean, I didn't say there is a Mishnah that lists 24. It's throughout all of the Mishnayot. Go find it. So what did he do? He found three. Which three? Someone who is belittling Netilas Yadayim. What about the Sota? What was the situation there? Someone who's disrespecting a rabbi, someone who disrespects a rabbi, and then the last one is someone who someone who disrespects and speaks arrogantly to Hashem. So what was the one about disrespecting a rabbi? You guys said it. The Isha Sota situation, where he pointed to Shemaya and Avtalion and said, yeah, they did it. They did it because they themselves were converts. So they're biased. They don't trust their opinion. What do you mean don't trust their opinion? They're the head of the court. You're saying you can't trust their opinion? Put him in Nidui. That's a Kavya ben Malel. Okay, next one. Rabbi Yehuda says they wouldn't. By the way, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the way Tosot explains Dugma Hishua means they didn't give her the Mehamarim. They gave her something that was like it. They gave her water. Dugma could also be like a what do you call it when synthetic placebo or a sample. What is it called when you do an experiment? The control. They gave a control something. They just gave some water to her. Dugma, which they didn't give the actual thing. They gave something like it, meaning they didn't give it. Why? Because they knew themselves they weren't supposed to do it, and they had some other reason why they were doing this. Maybe they.
That's like parchment, like on a description things by race.
So yeah. So according to that view, maybe they didn't do that. Maybe they just pretended like they did, and they just brought out like a cocktail of water. Yeah. Okay. So that's what there's a lot of discussion there. Back. But obviously, it's a little bit fuzzy because you have a machloket. One opinion says they were excommunicated, then Rabbi Yehuda says no, they were never excommunicated. The facts obviously aren't so clear because, like, did they excommunicate him or not? Did they put a stone on his grave or not? Okay, so this is the two. What did Rabbi Yehuda tell us? What was his?
Netilas Yadayim.
Belittled Netilas Yadayim, okay, which was a takanat Chachamim, and the third one is where he started telling Hashem, no, I didn't ask for that. I asked for this. No, I didn't ask for that. I asked for this. No, do what I say. Don't do this. Do that. I wanted this. It's like, relax. You know, you all of a sudden someone says, I want some water. You bring him water. They say, I wanted ice with my water. Okay, you brought ice. No, I didn't want. There's too much ice. And then you bring a little bit less. And no, I wanted crushed ice. I didn't want thick ice. It's like, what are you talking to Hashem this way? What are you making your request? Get out of here, right? Okay, fine. So there is the three. The next stage of the Gemara, we said we have more. We brought another example about Todos Ishromi, and then why did we say that wasn't included? It was a Braita. Good. Then we brought another one. Which one was that? Deflate gate. What was it called? Tanrosh Achnai, the one with the coil, the oven, and that was between Rabbi Elazar and Chachamim. And why did we not include that? Because the detail that he got excommunicated was in a Braita, not in the Mishnah itself. Okay, so now we're down to three. How come Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said 24 and Rabbi Elazar only found 3?
Similar cases.
Okay, very good. So what Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi was saying is, like, if you look throughout the Mishnah, you'll find other cases that based on these, you would decide to give that they would also be getting nidui. So you could build a list of 24. I want to see the Rambam now. Okay, just as we're closing up, let me show you the Rambam. I'm not going to go through this whole list. I am not prepared to do this, and there's a lot here that you're going to ask me questions for, and I can't. But not today, at least. Some other time. This is the Rambam in Hilchot Talmud Torah, Perek Vav, Halacha Yudal. He says as following: Ava mi sheniduhu al sha'ar devarim shechayavim alehem nidui, afilu nidahu katan shebiYisrael. Someone who was excommunicated because they deserved to get excommunicated, even if the person who did the excommunication was a small court, it wasn't like the biggest leader of Israel, but there was someone who excommunicated him. Chayav hanasi v'chol Yisrael linhog bo nidui. Everyone, including the president, including all of Israel, if there is any small court that put this person in excommunication, everyone has to uphold that, even the higher courts. Until the person does teshuvah, midavar sheniduhu bishvilo v'yatirulo. Until the point where, sorry, it keeps jumping. I'm going to stop highlighting. Until the point where this person does teshuvah, and that court that initially gave him the excommunication releases him from the excommunication. There are 24 reasons why a person gets nidui. Ben isha. Well, it could be a man or a woman. These are the 24. Echad, hamevazeh chacham. One who disgraces a chacham, even if he's already dead and he doesn't feel that disgrace, even after his death, that's one of the people that get nidui. This is one of the ones on our list.
Rabbi, the Gemara says only after they died.
It doesn't. Okay, very good. Our Gemara says after his death. Elon is picking up very nicely that it doesn't say only, it just says after his death. So the question is, the example that we brought from Shemaya and Avtalion, were they dead or were they alive? Sorry?
They were dead.
So it could be they were dead.
Because it's an example. It's giving an example of Achrei Mitatan, it says.
Right. So the way the Rambam is explaining it is that saying achar mitatan, really you have to throw in an extra word there. The extra word is afilu achar mitatan. If someone disgraces a rabbi in front of him, for sure he's going to be excommunicated. And even if someone not in front of him, but even after, even not in front of him, even if he's not even there in the room, still you have to excommunicate him. No matter what. Disrespect toward the Talmid Chacham, for sure if he's in there in the room, for sure if he's alive, because we're saying that even if he's dead, he has to do it. You might say you're disgracing someone who's dead. Okay, don't excommunicate him over someone that's dead. Our Mishnah is saying is even if he's dying. So you see the Rambam is learning it as the word afilu is in that sentence. Okay, that's the way the Rambam learns it. The second one on the list, hamevazeh shaliach bedin, someone who disgraces the messenger of the court. So the messenger of the court comes to give him a summons. So you have to come to court, and he makes fun of him, and he says, "Get out of here! You're nothing. I'm never going to listen to you. Who you think you are?" You do that, they put him in nidui. Why? Because it's part of the upholding the integrity of the court is that the messenger of the court needs to be listened to. You know, if someone comes and gives, you know, if the one that you're getting the summons from, if the law doesn't protect him, then there's not going to be any protection over the law. So not only will someone who disgraces the rabbi of the court get nidui, but someone who disgraces the messenger of the court is also. It's like what happens if you touch a stewardess on the plane? You get 7 years in prison, right? 7 years in prison. Why? What's the difference between this guy and the next guy? Okay, because like you have to. The law is protecting people that work for the law. That's really what it is. Okay, hakoreh lechavero eved, one who calls his friend a servant. Okay, mi sheshlacho lo bedin v'kavu lo zman v'lo ba. If someone received a summons from the court to come for a certain time and he doesn't show up, excommunicated. Hamizazel b'davar echad midivrei sofrim, one who disgraces a mitzvah that the rabbis instituted, and all the more so if it's a law from the Torah. So we did this one tonight. Which one is that? Netilas Yadayim. Okay. So there's a lot more here. There's a lot more here. There's a lot more here. Let me show you. Let me show you.
What's the word for excommunication?
Nidui. Yeah.
Same thing or no?
Yeah. Different. Yes. So there is. Where's the one that I'm looking for? Is it someone who speaks negatively to Hashem? Let me just find that. Okay. Oh, look at this. Look at Tet Vav. Look at Tet Vav, number 15. If someone does something to cause people to eat korbanot outside of Yerushalayim, who did this? Todos. That's why. What did Shimon Shatak say? He says, if you weren't so important, I would have put you in Nidui. That gets on this list. Okay, and I think. Okay, look. The point is that you see the Rambam found the list. He went and he did the work, and then he came together with a list. And this ends up being the list of the 24 that we have that Yehoshua ben Levi started. Yes, questions.
Talking about way back then, even recently, I've heard of in the Syrian community that something happened like this where they put a rabbi in harem. So are we bringing it around modern times?
Yeah, absolutely. This
would be the reason, not one of these reasons.
So there's different reasons why someone would be put in harem. It happens even nowadays. Essentially, the main thing is this is what I call a choshen mishpat question, right? This is a question for the courts. It's not a question for me. I can't put people in harem. I would never. I don't have that authority. An individual, yeah, for sure. So what happens is there are situations where a court asks someone to come, and they say, "I'm not coming." And you go and you try to have a conversation with them. They say, "I don't care about what you say. I'm not coming." So you announce it, you try, you give them a chance, but then afterwards, you write in a statement, you put it up publicly. This person has been requested to come to court. He's not coming, and until he's not come, he's in cherem. And you send it to his synagogue, you send it to his gabayim, and you tell him, don't let him do this, don't let him do that. And if anyone has the ability to get him to come to court, tell him to come to court. Or ask him to come to court. There's many situations like this. Without getting, we don't need to get into all of it, but there's a situation, there's a concept of aguna. You know what aguna is? A guy who should be giving a get, giving a divorce document to a woman, and there's not. So there'll be synagogues and communities that put him in cherem. They'll write notes. They won't let him. They'll
Marry a convert.
marry a convert. Don't get cherem.
No, just for. Yeah.
No. That just okay. Yeah. That's not cherem. That's a takana of the community saying that we're not going to give you these certain things. Yes, yeah. I guess that's a similar idea, but that's not cherem. Then sometimes keep in mind, they're not putting the person in cherem, they're putting the book in cherem. Let's say someone writes a controversial book, so the world will say, you're not allowed to read this book. You're not putting him in cherem. What is this? One rabbi said that there is nothing that was as good publicity for his book than his book got in cherem. When his book got in cherem, he sold out. If you want to help someone's book, get rid of it. If I ever write a book, put it in cherem, and then all of a sudden, woo, everyone's going to want to read it. So, sometimes it backfires. But this is a tool that courts have to uphold the integrity of the court. That's not on this list. Yeah.
Rabbi.
Yes.
Does this really take into account, like, if one of the rabbanim do teshuvah, like?
Right. So this is what the Rambam tells us, is that the court that issued the nidui, the person can go back to that court and repair things. This is not a lifetime sentence. Nidui is until you fix whatever it is that you did. So in the case of Akavia ben Malalel, you have to go and you ask for forgiveness. You have to say, I'm sorry, I publicly apologize for what I said. I was wrong, and that's it. But it didn't happen in that situation.
And what if the Rabbanim that they disrespected is dead? How do you do teshuvah?
So
that?
again, the teshuvah between him and Hashem, he could do regardless if someone's dead. But what they would have to do is he would have to go to another court. It's a good question. What happens if that court is no longer in session? Can you go to another court? Good question. I don't know. We've spoken to Rabban Chaim about situations where they put someone in cherem. They don't do it lightly. Because look, if you're a court that issues these cherems all the time, it's not going to be taken seriously. It's like you go and you say, like the ICC saying, let's go and arrest him. You just keep saying these things, you're not taken seriously. If you just do things, what's the word, prematurely. But Rabban Chaim has told us, it's like you'll reach out to him again, you give him another chance, you'll give him the opportunity to pick a date, you let him push it off. If he says he wants to push it off 6 months, you let him push it off 6 months, you give him the opportunity. But if once he says to the one who's giving him the summons, if he says, I don't care what you have to say, I'm not coming, oof, that's cherem. If the guy's not answering you, you give him the benefit of the doubt, you try to work with him. Once he looks at you in the eye and says, I don't care what you have to say, you could give me whatever you want. All I'm going to do with this paper is use it to wipe the animal or something. I'm not going to do anything with this. I don't care what you have to say. That's someone that you put in cherem. Okay, again, you have to really speak to a court that's doing this. And Yigal, your question is, okay, how do you fix that? It's a good question. If that court is not around, I think you could go to another court, but I don't know. Kosher Mishpat question. Okay. Very good, gentlemen. We'll stop here. Have a great night. Next week.